When law of attraction, law of being is not working. So when law of attraction, law of being is not working for you, you need to step back and go back to the basics. And what I mean by that is when law of attraction, law of assumption is not working for you, it is actually still working. But when you start thinking it's not working, then you kind of get stuck to the notion or to the thought that it's not working. So you have to step back and go back to the basics of what you believe in with regards to law of attraction, law of assumption. So like in my case, when I experienced that it's not working, I try to go back to my basics. And for example, it's not working. So what's my formula for law of attraction, law of assumption? My formula is no plus motion plus flow. So in other words, you can also say that this formula is believe plus vibration plus zone. So just a quick explanation. So my basic formula is knowing that it is done, or basically believing that it is done. And then motion, you have to go through the motion of doing it, which is equivalent to the vibration. But in simple terms, I call it motion because you have to go through the motion of doing it. And the last part is the flow. You have to let it flow. You have to let law of attraction, law of assumption flow. Or you have to be in the zone. So again, going back to the short keys, for me, it is knowing it is done, plus going through the motion, and plus letting it flow. So I've experienced law of assumption, really, law of being in a lot of situations already. Whether like I'm on a rampage of appreciation, meaning I'm feeling good and I feel like I can do anything and I am able to achieve my goal. So in this way, in that way, law of assumption worked. Because I know it was done, it's done. I went through the motion, I let it flow, and I was able to achieve my goal. So that's one situation wherein I was still I was still successful, and I saw that law of attraction work. But that was in that situation is kind of like you're positive, you're you're up, you're high, you, you're so positive. So that's a good thing. But I've also experienced law of assumption work when I was on the downside, meaning I was worried, I was anxious, and I was not in a positive way, but law of assumption still worked, and I was still able to achieve what I wanted to achieve. I was able to achieve my goal. So, in positive situations and negative situations, or in situations where I was up and in situations where I was down, I have experienced that law of attraction, law of assumption, really, law of being still works. And going back through those experiences and knowing my formula now, really, why did it work when I was up? When and why did it work when I was down? And the formula is really knowing, going through the motion, and letting it flow. And when I say knowing, it's believe it's done, know it's done, motion, go through the motion, do it, do the steps, do what you have to do, and then let it flow. And as I mentioned, this was the formula I was able to develop, to formulate in positive situations and in negative situations. And law of assumption still worked for me. So when law of attraction, law of assumption is not working for you, step back and go back to basics and go to your formula. It helps because it clears up your mind. That law of assumption, law of attraction really goes back to creation is complete. It is done. It affirms your belief on law of assumption. So you can also meditate in order to clear your mind. Step back. Acknowledge that what you are experiencing, maybe when it's not working, is not what you want. And then go back to your formula. And again, as I mentioned, in my case, I was able to go back to my formula when I was up, when I was positive, and when I was down and on the negative side. And in both cases, I've experienced that it worked and I was able to develop this formula of mine. So, again, the formula is know, motion, and flow.